Alright, what's up guys? I'm here today to present you the best build for all the 10% gamers out there. Boneshatter Slayer. In my opinion, it is and was for a while the best day 1/day 2 build you could play. Like good damage, good defense, right? Good speed. You can get your void stones pretty early with like very minimal gear and farm like whatever gear you want, either on this build if you wanna keep playing it or a new build, whatever else you would wanna play it afterwards. The one problem with the build though is like it is not the best at farming Ubers. Like farming Ubers on this is kind of painful before you get like really good gear. So aside from that, it's probably like you can pretty much do like everything in the game and pretty efficiently and very comfortably. So I recommend, obviously. These are the only two things that changed this patch, like compared to like, I think a lot of builds that got changed a lot, like Spark for example, that is kind of gutted. The main thing this patch for Boneshatter is that we lost the Determ Mastery here, which is pretty big. So mana is a big problem, and we lost the Spell Suppression Mastery here. So which means gearing is a lot more difficult, and solving mana is a big problem. But I'll get into how we do that like later. So I was gonna start with the start, which is so leveling. So in the PUB you'll have all the skill gems you need to level. We're gonna level Splitting Seal first, right, from level 1 to level 8 until we get level 12. Sorry, until we get Helix. And then you just go Helix the entire way until like 5 Kitava, and afterwards you'll do the Twilight Strand to get Fortified support. You'll switch Boneshatter at that point, and you will have all the gems you need here for that. So in the PvP, like you will have all the stuff you need, all the gems you need. You're also gonna have the tree here that like shows you exactly like at what point what you want to spec in where. Like for example, you have the Act 1 tree, and then you have like the Act 2 tree when you swap to the term here, and what you have when you want to swap to Boneshatter. And etc, like in exactly in the order you want it. So you just refer to this whenever you're not sure what you should pick up next. You just check here, and there's like a tree for like each stage during the leveling in acts. For bandits will just kill all. Like you could do Illyra, you could save help Illyra if you're not comfortable. You want to be a bit safer. You don't want to worry too much about your gear. But I don't think that's an issue, since Jules gets a lot of res on the tree. Like you get Cloth and Chain here. If you really want to, you can take damage skin very early, but I would not do that. Cloth and Chain plus just craft on your gear are enough to cap your res most of the time in Act 3, which is when you want it. Now one thing to remember to know though is like there's a few problems while you level. Mana is gonna be a big problem once you get Determination on, since you'll be playing with like 80 mana, something like this, and it's pretty difficult. On the 4 link you'll be very uncomfortable, but that's normal. You'll get better as you level. Another problem is accuracy. So we use precision as soon as we get it. So which is like around level 8, and we try to keep it level 1 for as long as possible. You should always check your accuracy from time to time to make sure it's not completely bricked, you're not sitting at like 85% hit chance or something. Ideally you get lucky, you get some accuracy on your gear, otherwise you just level precision a couple times and it's okay, it should fix it. But ideally you want to keep it level 1 so that when you swap Determination in, you do not have too many mana problems. Another problem is the sockets. Gems in this PvP are all in the order of which you want to get them. In order of priority. For example, in here you don't really care that much about, for example, Maim. Like Maim is okay, if you don't have it, it's okay. You're gonna have to compromise most of the time depending on like the gems how many gems you have, sockets you have, sorry, and what colors. Same for the supports, they're all in order in which you want them in priority. For example, for Spectral Helix and your 4 link, ideally you want Cruelty, but if you do not have if your 4 link does not have 2 red sockets, you can just use Vicious Purge instead, and that's okay. So nothing here is like mandatory. Like if you can't get it, it's okay, just move on, try to find more sockets later. As for the Ascendancy Order, we'll get, first lab will be this, will be Impact. Your first lab is always Impact. This is what you need it for. It does nothing for you early on when you're Helix, it just helps a bit with accuracy. But as soon as you want Boneshatter, you want Impact. So this is why we go Impact first. Crow lab will be Bane of Legends for the damage, because you don't, Brutal Fervor early doesn't do that much. You don't have enough damage and leech to actually cap your leech. And Uber Lab is when you get a call. As for the Pantheons always using Brand King. Like I have it everything on the notes here also. Pantheons always going to be Brand King, so to solve your freeze immunity, to help with stuns. Like all the Pantheons in the ranking are actually pretty good. You also get shield effect if you don't have the shield immunity on boots, so that helps a lot. And you will run Garukan until you get shock immunity from gear. So Garukan plus Flask Suffix will solve your shock, sorry. And for the freeze, before you get the Brine King, the Divine Vessel, so you can get freeze immunity, you'll just use your Quest Quicksilver, which is level 4, and is extremely likely to roll freeze immunity. So you just use a couple alterations on your Quest Quicksilver if you want freeze immunity, and that should solve it. When it comes to Ailment Immunity, you will solve ailments by simply having Brine King, Pantheon, solves the freeze. The chill will be solved on Boots. Boots will give you chill immunity with the Veiled mod. And for shock, you basically use a Torment crafted Essence of Torment Boots to get the Avoid Shock here with an Abyss Jewel that also gives you Avoid Shock. And that with Avoid Ailment implicit on Boots also should round it up if you can't get 100% with both. So you don't really need Deafening Essence of Torment or anything like that. You just need as high as you can get. You just spam from Screaming to above until you get what you want. And you just get, again, an Abyss Jewel with some Avoid Shock, and that solves Shock as well. Speaking of freeze immunity, usually you don't really need it during the axe. Just don't click boxes if you don't know how to crossblink out of them. Usually I try to get my freeze flask when I do Lunaris in Act 8. Until then, you don't really need to worry too much about it. You just be careful around the boxes, and that's it. For the gear, I'm gonna have a couple item sets here. So there's like 2 ways you can do it early game. One way is just to ignore suppression completely. You just go for like armor. You just go for armor gear, get as much armor as possible, get max res. A couple masteries that give us more max res, so we can be sitting at how much? Like about like 84. Yeah, 84, 82, 82. Which is pretty good. And you focus on just getting a bunch of armor. Otherwise, you can just go for suppression earlier, which personally I don't think I will do. I think I'm just gonna go for full armor setup and get a lot of get my damage, get precise technique going, etc. But if you really want to, you can want to be more safer. You can go for suppression. Have a set here, a set of gear, and a tree also that allows you to do that, like around level 95. Now, the way we solve suppression dispatch is that you have to use a Dragon Scale if you want suppression, right? You have to use a Dragon Scale, and you also have to anoint suppression on your neck. So that's how we deal with it. Before, you could get away with not having a chest, a Dragon Scale, and just use like a Glorious Plate, and you just anoint suppression. That's enough. Now you need to do both. Fitting Arctic Armors is really difficult now compared to before. So yeah, suppression, anoint, and Dragon Scale, and you will, even without the mastery, we can still cap it. That's one of the problems too. It's like in this patch, it's very, very hungry in points. You need a lot of points on your tree. You need a lot of levels to be able to spec everything you want to spec. So that's also one thing you have to keep in mind. XP is important. Now, before entering maps, like after you're done going through Axe, before entering maps, there's a few things you have to look out for. Is the weapon, which I also mentioned here, like how you should get your weapons while leveling. So there's a whole section on this about weapon crafting here. You should look at it if you're not sure how to when to upgrade your weapons and what bases to use, etc. They're all here, so just refer to this. Once you get through Axe, you get to Act 9. I would recommend farming Blood Aqueduct for a little bit. Try to drop 6 sockets maybe. For example, getting an armor 6 socket early is pretty important. Like on a decent base, that's a decent amount of armor, because you will need all the sockets you could get early on. Like even 5 socket armors, for example, are worth keeping an eye for. Farm BA a bit for levels. I would farm Foothills a tiny bit too if you want to be safe, obviously, to get your Chaos Unveils. They're pretty important to enter maps with some Chaos Res at least. Another thing you also want to look out for is if you find a Looting Essence, it is also very good. It's going to help you solve your mana once you enter maps. Entering maps, your mana will be very uncomfortable because you will be playing at like 30 mana basically if you don't have anything. So that's enough, that's playable. Ideally, you want a Looting Essence, so you just use it on an Astral Plate, and that should solve your mana until you can get Aerions going. Once you get Aerions going, you don't need any Looting, so you can just use a better chest, for example. Now, once you're mapping and you're progressing, like the gear priority should be good armor, like a good chest with a lot of armor, like a Glorious Plate, an Astral Plate. Usually Astral Plate is what you want to look for because they help with res. And you want to get precise technique going as soon as possible. I do think it is better to just focus on life, res, accuracy early on, so you can don't have to worry too much about suppression, because suppression it requires too many levels and it's really hard to gear for early on. It kind of puts too much pressure on your gear, so I would not worry about it too much early on. Like Slayer can survive, this build can survive without suppression in maps, no problem. You have a lot of armor, a lot of recovery, you'll be fine. One thing to note too, while you're progressing, is that this mastery here helps a lot with that. This mastery here gives you life if your body armor doesn't have any life, which means if it doesn't have life, but it has like a lot of armor, a lot of res, physical damage reduction, etc., you can just use it and just click that mastery, and that's gonna make up for the life loss. This is pretty much equivalent to tier 1 life. So yeah, armor, life, res, obviously, accuracy, PT as soon as possible, which is pretty easy this patch since we get this mastery now. That gives you like, you know, a lot of accuracy while you're still like relatively low level, and even at level 100, it's still 300 flat, which is the best. The most accuracy you can get. Uniques to look out for too while leveling and while progressing are Worm Sign, Sinvictus, Carnage Heart, Belt of the Deceiver, and the biggest ones are like Obscurantis, which basically fixes Precise Technique by itself, and Elevor, which will help a lot with if you want to capture Supression early on, and also Death Rush, although Death Rush is too rare to just drop off the ground, so you know, if you find one, that's good, just always equip it, if not, then whatever. But these are the ones I would look out for. While you're mapping, there's obviously not that many map mods you actually have to avoid, but I would 100% avoid cannot be leech, obviously you cannot do, and less recovery. Less recovery rate is pretty annoying because it just, you know, that's basically also a tank mod, because you won't be able to ramp as much, and it's a lot of your survivability relies on your leech, which you're fully expecting to. This patch we've gotten like this mastery got buffed, and we got like this mastery here that's kind of big. So it's basically like 10% extra history, well, which is like 10% of your life on hit, basically on Slayer. On other classes it's 1%, on Slayer it's 2% life on hit, which is you know, it actually helps you a lot, like in sustaining trauma, especially early on. I think this will be very noticeable. One thing that I've heard a lot from people is like they feel like they don't do enough damage. They're struggling on bosses, etc., and that's has purely have to do with pressing your buttons. Like, you will have to press, like, put down totems. Totems are extremely important for this build. If you do not have totems down, you do not deal single target damage. So it's something you have to remember. That's also why we're using this Ironwood and Panopticon, as well as the mastery that makes totems linger. If you have those, totems down, totems not down is a massive DPS difference. 50, like more than 50% more damage. And the buff, the linger here helps you in case your totems die or if you move away. For example, when you drop your totems like fighting a pack with a rare or something, then you still have it like for like the 30-second linger is really nice. It has a lot of speed. So yeah, put down your totems. Press Berserk, that's what we have Berserk for, to be able to burst like anything that's like a big rare, map bosses, anything that's like dangerous. Like, you just blow Berserk whenever you need it. Warlord's Mark on cast from damage taken, and that allows you to basically use Berserk very liberally. Like, you will always get the rage back. To give you an example, if you Berserk in the middle of a Harbinger, for example, you will be able to Berserk from start to finish as long as there's stuff to hit. So it is very strong. You should not be scared of using Berserk whenever you feel like you need the extra power for it. Dropping a War Banner is also very important. For, again, like, basically, your damage without totems, without anything, is very low. But if you have all your totems down, you pop all your cooldowns, you will do like... I'll give you an example on my endgame setup here, for example, that I have for this build. I do have like a super endgame. If you want to min-max the build, that would look like this, right? So this is your damage, like sustained damage at full trauma, right? With nothing else, you're just hitting the monster. Now, if you click everything, like that's with totems down though. I'll show you without the totems. So say you don't have the Ward Shift down, you don't have the Protector down. This is your damage now, all of a sudden. Now, if you put down your totems, you use Val Ward Shift, for example, you drop War Banner, and you use Berserk, suddenly your damage is way higher. Like triple, like more than double the damage, like 2.5 times. It's like almost triple if you focus also. Yeah, if you focus also, which is gonna be like on later, right? You won't have that like during progression. You might have it during progression though. That's also one thing that's like important to look out for, is all the good unveils, which I'm gonna actually list. But yeah, it's like basically triple damage. So it is very important for you to always make sure you use all your conditional damage while you're mapping and killing map bosses or doing anything slightly more dangerous than, you know, regular white blue mobs. Also, there's like I put here like basically that's gonna be your cast damage taking setup, right? With Warlord's Mark, normally when you're mapping, when you're bossing, you're just gonna want to swap that for Vuln. Whenever you're doing like an invite, you're doing like any boss. Like, you don't have to swap that for map bosses or even Guardian. Like, I would swap it for Guardian maybe if you at the start when you're weak. You would swap this for, say, like, I don't know, the invites, like a Polaric Invitation, the Breathing Invitation. And whenever you do whatever pinnacle boss you do, you would swap Warlord for Vuln, so it's an easy Dram swap. Just make sure the Vuln is not to high level, so it actually procs off cast and damage taken. So yeah, again, you have notes here that explain everything from general tips here, the whole leveling thing, how you're gonna level, how to upgrade your weapons, how to craft an axe. I know there's a lot of questions about how to make your gear. There's a full section here on how to make your weapon. A section to make the belt, because the belt that I have in the, that's only if you want to make like a really endgame belt. The one that I've included on my PB, all the items I've included on my PB, this is how to make them here, like the belt, the rings, and the other slots. And for those who want, like, if you don't know what watch design to look out for, I also have that here. Early endgame set of gear for if you don't want to go for suppression, if you want to go for suppression, and like super endgame, like obviously with suppression, everything, all the stuff you would want. When it comes to some of the things you have to look out for while progressing is Betrayal Unveils. So these are really important, like they're actually vital to the build. You will need Fizz Impel on weapons, you'll need Focus Double Damage on weapons, a suffix, you'll need Chaos Hybrid Resistances so you can enter maps with some Chaos Res. You'll also need Ailment Unveil, which is mana cost reduction, which you'll have to craft on both the rings. You will also need, this is just movement avoid shield boots, which is best farmed by targeting rain. As well, Fist taking as fire on helmet. And you will need Fist taken as fire and lightning on chests. I've highlighted here who you need to target to be able to get those. So Ariane obviously for the mana cost, Rain for the chill immunity on boots because she is more likely to give you boots, so that's why we target her, since she has a boot specific unveil. Then we target Voichi for damage with leeching unveil, and Corel will give you Fist taken as fire and helmet, and Gravicious on the Fist taken as fire and lightning on body armor. And the way you target farm those is by, say you need your Arion Unveil, you just put him by himself in research or intervention, and you just run betrayal missions. When you're farming like more than one, run your research safe hubs as soon as possible. You just go max intelligence there, you just rank up and you interrogate everybody there to make sure you run the safe hubs as soon as possible, get him out, and then you just leave him by himself in research. Rin doesn't start in your syndicate, so you cannot target farm him. Voichi though will be in intervention at the start. So you same thing, you just run your intervention instantly. Corel will start his transportation, so you just need to get him out of there ASAP. Get Corel out of transportation, get him in intervention. And Gravicious also doesn't start, which means when you start on League Start, you wanna make sure you remove anybody that's not one of these guys and the other ones we care about, which are like Hilok you wanna keep, Riker you wanna keep, he helps you get uniques. You want to keep Ashling, obviously, for Ashling Slams. And you want to keep Leo. Leo helps you get your 5-link, 6-link in research. So everybody else, you just kick them deliberately. Just kick them out. They're not important. Having someone who wants to leave your syndicate is not something that's like very common. Especially early, before you have your board set up properly with the rivalries, etc. So when you don't have that, you just want to... Anybody who wants to leave, that's not one of the people you care about, you just kick them out instantly. Until you get Gravicious in, and you get Rin in. And then you just target farm those the way I said, by putting one in research by himself, one in intervention by himself. And everybody else in the other safe houses, that don't matter too much. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them. And or come see me on my stream. I'll be playing this at League Star, just like I have for the last 3-4 leagues. And yeah, 10% gamers unite.